Hello, my name is Nancy Wirt, and I am the Adult Services Librarian at the John F. Kennedy Library downtown Vallejo. Vallejo rules. Today I'm going to show you the difference between some various types of black ink pens, papers that you can make art on, and pencils to draw with. I've been a librarian for 12 years and a practicing artist for 9, and I hope to explain some really super basic practices about which paper or pen or pencil to use depending on what you want to make. The examples that I'm going to show you will describe some basic items that are widely available, some at Michael's or Joann's, some at the dollar store. And my advice is to start with the cheaper option. If you find your bliss, then you can upgrade your items to something fancier or, not, depending on how much you like what you're doing. All right, first off, I'm going to talk about the pens, and I just started with some black pens. You can see in this list, these are all available in most places. You can get a big stick pen at the dollar store. You can get a Sharpie at the dollar store. Some of these other ones you need to go, Artist Loft is the store brand at Michael's. So, and Faber-Castell is it's a famous brand. You can find it in a lot of different places, art stores, Michael's, Joann's. And Prismacolor is another one. It might be a little more specialized. The Sakura Glaze, this is a Japanese glaze pen. It's my favorite, my personal favorite. I had to include it. You can find them at Joann's sometimes, but it's easier to get them through like an online thing because they're imported from Japan. And I know there's a lot of different, you can always go to Amazon and find anything, but I can really recommend a lot of stuff for art supplies would be from Blick. It's B-L-I-C-K. I'm pretty sure it's blick.com. And they have really fancy art supplies, but their store brand is really good, so I can recommend that. The cool thing about Michael's and Joann's is the coupons. Okay, so on to the pens. Now, with pens, you can do things for writing and drawing and sketching, and you can color in pictures. Mark making, there's calligraphy, all different kinds of things you could do with pens. One of the most important factors when it comes to pens, in my experience, is whether it's water-based or permanent. In my practice of art journaling, I write and paint. I write and then I paint over some of the writing with some lighter color so you could see the writing through it. Or I will paint and then after the acrylic has dried, then I want to write upon it. So I want to make sure, I really don't want my stuff to smear. And if I do another watery layer over it, it would on some pens. So as an example, this one's a calligraphy pen, but like I said, Artist Loft. This is, it's in French, you can't see it. So if I just draw, just making a mark with this one. Faber-Castell, this one is a brush pen, but it's the same idea. There's different points on all of these, so you can figure out whichever thing you want. And the Prismacolor is also a brush. You'll see which ones flip around because I'm a lefty. The Prismacolor is a smaller brush. It's more of a pointy brush. Just depends on what kind of a point you like. These are more stick. The pen with the paint in it. It's a really fine 0.5. From Molotow, Molotow is I'm trying to remember. It was originally created by graffiti artists. So it's a paint company made to stick to walls. So I'm thinking it's pretty permanent. Another permanent one you can get in a lot of places is just Sharpie. We use these to sign the back of our library cards because it's one of the things that'll stick. Permanent Sharpies are awesome. Now the glaze, it's kind of shiny. We have to let it dry for a minute. And then a regular old Bic stick. Nice black. Oops, I forgot my lines in the other one. Can't forget that. 3 lines. There you go. All right, so I'm gonna let these dry for a minute to give them a fair chance. And when it comes to all of this stuff from any of the different places you get, like I said, you could start with the cheap stuff. And if it works, because a lot of people I know, there's whole books on just how to draw and make art with Sharpies. So there's plenty of things like that. When it comes to art books, we're in the library. I can tell you right now, it is 741.2. on the numbers on the spines of the books. The Dewey Decimal System, the drawing books are 741.2. Pretty much any library you're going to go to, you look at that section, you're going to find the drawing books every time, because most of us are in the same sorting system. So, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a water brush. This is a water brush. You can see the water inside. Nifty little brush. And I'm going to paint over here so that we can get a little water in it. And I'm going to run this down here so we can see which one of these are smearing or not. To be fair, try a little more water because I don't want to cheat anybody. And it's hard to see, but there's a big old streak of water right here. And it looks to me, let me see if this one does anything. Nope. Nope. I think what we have is 5 water resistant. This one, I think I went in the order of how much they smear. So, the Artist Loft calligraphy smears the most. So I'm not going to use that on top of my stuff. But if I use it as the last layer of something and I'm not going to put anything over it, I could use something like that. Okay, now we're going to talk about paper. I have 5 different types of paper, and paper comes in different weights. You know, there's the difference between lined paper and copy paper and like really fancy thick cardboard or cardstock and all different kinds of weights. So how they weigh it, I just found this out. This one I found out online. If you take 500 sheets of paper, how much they weigh, if you took 500 sheets of paper and they weighed 100 pounds, that's called a 100-pound paper. And it has to do with the thickness and the weight of the paper. So I have a bunch of examples here, and I'm going to show you the difference between what the marks look like on plain paper and show you the difference between gesso and clear gesso. Don't worry, I'll explain. And how that can change or keep the look of the paper you're going through to use. But it's also a way that you can use a thinner paper than you'd think for wet media or something that you would think would rip a hole in it. So it's a primer for paint. It can be used as a glue, but there's better stuff for that than that. And, well, let me show you. Let me show you this. We're gonna use a Sharpie, because it's a good basic pen that anyone can use. And this is a piece of copy paper. And copy paper, I looked it up, and it's about 20-pound weight. And you know how thin regular old copy paper that you put in the computer to print? And you can draw a picture on plain copy paper. And I've put gesso right here and clear gesso right here. Now, what is gesso? Gesso is a primer, acrylic white primer. And people put it on all different kinds of paper or canvas or you can put it on wood, any kind of surface that you're going to put media on top of it. It's a good way because you can reinforce the paper that you're using or not. Depends. See, what I have here is different kinds of paper. There's copy paper, sketch paper. You can get this, you can get copy paper anywhere. Dollar store, big box store, anywhere. Sketch paper, you can also get that pretty much anywhere. Good old line paper. I got this from my notebook that I've had forever. It's actually technically left-handed paper. I looked that up, and line paper is only 16 pounds. And the copy paper, I looked it up on the label, it says 20 pounds right here. And the sketch paper, 60 pounds. The thickest one I have is watercolor paper. And you can buy this, sometimes you can get it at the dollar store. It should tell you, anything that says watercolor or mixed media will tell you what the poundage is on the paper. And the thicker it is, the higher the number. The more sturdy the paper, the higher the number. There's fancy watercolor paper out there that's 300-pound paper. That's some thick stuff. Another one I brought, a grocery bag. Anybody can find a grocery bag. This one is the best one to show you the difference between plain gesso and clear gesso. Because on all of these is plain, gesso is white, and clear gesso is on here. I wish you could feel this. What it does is it gives a texture and a tooth to the paper. And so that I could put something on here, so I put the clear gesso, and it has reinforced this paper so that I could put more wet media. If I wanted to paint with acrylic paint, there's actually a type of, what did I call it? It was a primer for paint, for acrylic. There's a primer for watercolor. There's one that you can turn regular paper and you can put a watercolor base on it to make it ready for watercolor. There's all kinds of things. I'm trying to make this easier for you if you want to go and try something, to just go someplace and not be confused when there's 17 different versions of what you want to try. So I feel, like I said, you try it on the simplest thing you already have. Copy paper, maybe a sketch paper, maybe this paper. You can see where I put the white over it, and you could fade that out. I could put another layer on it, it would be completely white, and you wouldn't even see the lined paper. People have turned composition books with this kind of paper. You know how thin that paper is. It's totally just regular paper. It just rips like nothing. It's they've covered it with clear gesso or white gesso and made them so thick you'd have to look at the cover to know that it was a composition book, because the paper is so thick inside from layers and layers. Another way is you just stick another picture on it, on the piece of paper to thicken it, but that's collage, and we'll talk about that next time, I think. Okay, so paper, the drawing of it on these, it is a different feel to it, but it doesn't feel, it feels kind of, you can hear the scratchy. And this one's even scratchier.
Attention patrons with 3 p.m. appointments. There are 4 minutes left in the hour, so please begin making your final selections, checking your items out, your computers, and heading to the exit so that we can let the 4 p.m. appointments in. Thank you.
The way it works with all of these, for watercolor, I generally don't really put, no, I can't say that. I would say that I wouldn't have to put gesso on it, but I use a lot of acrylic, so I put a lot of gesso on. Most of my pages are gessoed. And I like the white gesso, and I will plain white gesso, clear gesso. The only other one I know of is black gesso. That's not what we're talking about here. Same idea though. They only made the clear so that you could have the color you want. Because generally, the easiest one to find is the white. Generally what you can do is you just get a little plastic thingy and dig some out, or these are nice squirt bottles. And I scrape it on with an old credit card or a hotel key card, that kind of thing. And brush it on the edges. Just make sure you wash them really quick, because when they dry, they're like glue and they're just like acrylic and it'll ruin your brush. The idea is that you're playing. If you're doing it to sell, you're doing it for somebody else, to impress somebody else, it's probably not going to be as fun, you know. And the whole idea is that people think, oh, it's a gift from God, it's fate, it's a talent, innate talent that someone has. It's practice and an unending interest. Because what is it? The cure for boredom is curiosity. There's no cure for curiosity. That's one of my favorite authors, Dorothy Parker, said that.